Well, I just finished watching the Time for School video, and I think one of the main points that I took out of it was that um, it's interesting to see how much distraction there is around the world when it comes to school, especially for girls. Like they showed the example of Afghanistan and how in Afghanistan the biggest distraction is the Taliban, and they're trying to halt the progression of girls in school. And I thought that was really interesting. Also, they showed in the India example and also in Brazil how the distractions in India were also the lack of attention given to education, and that made it so that many people had to focus on cleaning and on helping around the house. So that the girl in the video in Afghanistan and also in India, they spent most of their time cleaning and at the house. When it was interesting to see how the girls were so less valued over the boys, because the boys, they could do whatever they want. They had more opportunities educationally, and it seemed like they didn't have to do any work. They just got to play around and just have fun. So that was interesting to see. Also, I noticed in the Brazil example, the distraction for the little boy was the gang, or the dangerous situation that he lived in the favela, and so he was always trying to work around that obstacle of being in that kind of situation. I thought that was really interesting. Um, I know that in Brazil it's really hard educationally, and that really hit me because that's where I served my mission, was in Manaus, Brazil. Um, in Brazil, they have a program called Bolsa Familia, which is where they pay the families so that their kids can go to school. They pay the parents to actually to have their kids go to school, and that's interesting because in our country, at least, we value education enough that we would go on our own terms. But and in also in other countries, but in Brazil, they have such a low frequency rate that they have to pay the families to make their kids go. I noticed that a lot of times in Brazil, the kids wouldn't be so into school as they should be, because they just had to go to get the money that their family wanted them to get. And it's interesting to see they talked about how in Brazil 2 out of 3 kids drop out of school before they get to the 8th grade, and I saw that a lot. They drop out of school and go to the drug cartels, and they start getting into that world of drugs and violence. Um, it's interesting because you feel bad for these kids, and you want them to succeed, and you see their potential, and they're smart kids, and that's why they do so well actually in the drug area, because they know how to convince people and they know how to manipulate things, and that's something that could be used for good in a school sense, or a sense of application to the real world to help better the world, but they use it to destroy themselves, and it makes me sad, but it's just interesting. Um, Also, we know that in the India example, I thought it was interesting, because the girl, she had no opportunity to go to school until she would have to go to night school, and that was interesting to me because um, usually, I mean, in America, everybody has an opportunity to go to school, and in a lot of countries, they have at least the basic the basic years of school given just as a free thing. But in this India example, she had to um, go out go after a night school opportunity, because she couldn't do anything during the day because she was super busy working, and her priority was marriage, and her family was worried more about her becoming a homemaker to be a good match for somebody, rather than trying to make her a smart, intelligent person so that she could make a life for herself. Um, and then comparing all those examples to Japan, Japan is one of the highest rated um, educational systems in the world, and it has nearly 100% enrollment rate in secondary school, um, and so that's an incredibly high number, almost perfect. And it's interesting to compare the two because in Japan, I guess they're worried because the grades are slipping. They've made the programs less intense, and but then again, it's interesting to note that the little boy, his mother was concerned that that he didn't recognize that there were kids out there that didn't have those kind of opportunities. And I thought that was interesting because a lot of times we're shell shocked in our own little world in here in America, and we don't recognize the problems that are actually out there and that people face, and that, for example, a girl had to work all day at her house and then go to night school and come back only when everyone was sleeping and have to wake up super early to do chores just to get an education. And then even after all that, she was placed in the first grade when she went back to school, to actual school, when we just are comfortable here, going to school normally and having great opportunities. And so it really opened my eyes to the fact that of how blessed we really are and how much we take for granted. And I really liked the video. I thought it was really interesting. And so that's what I thought.